And I was, the Army Cavalry Platoon is the heaviest and deadliest platoon size unit in the United States Army. I commanded 50 men, 10 vehicles, 7 armored cavalry vehicles, and 3 tanks. In my tank section, my scout section, was a Specialist 4th Class Ralph Mottola. Every commander loosely or strictly classifies his men into 3 categories. One is the upper 5% who are totally focused, and they soon move into positions of leadership deservedly and smoothly. Then there's a vast majority of everyone who fits in the middle. Men who do the jobs and aren't recognized enough. But without those men in the middle, the team cannot function. The machine is not well oiled. And then there's a third classification, always that small percentage that doesn't seem to always get the word. Where did Ralph fit in all this? It may not surprise many of you that he did not. Ralph was in a class all of his own. After reserving my platoon for a short while, I saw that the command track of Charlie 10 that was commanded by the scout section leader, the staff sergeant. Ralph was clearly the second in command, and he was senior and mentored and essentially drilled into the other 3 PFCs, the 3 PFCs on that track. And it was my observation at different times that he only allowed Staff Sergeant Brooks to ride in him. He also had a little trait that also set him apart. He was a ghost, and a ghost in Army parlance or vernacular is someone who's there who isn't there. As in, where's Mottola? I don't know, sir. He was just here a moment ago. So I had to leave it to his squad leader to correct him on this trait in less endearing terms. But it also became obvious that he had the wool pulled over the staff sergeant's eyes as well. And this led to my lifelong term of ghosts. He was incorrigible in that the Army did not own him 100%. It may have been only 2%, but it was his 2% and no one else's. In a long forgotten place, we observed a VC going down a hole. I said, Mottola, get in the hole. Why me, sir? Because look at your sleeves. It shows you're a Specialist 4th Class. Look at my collar, and it shows that I'm a senior lieutenant, and I outrank you. Get in the goddamn hole. He says, why can't Miller do it? Bob Miller was his best friend on that train. I said, because if you must know, Mottola, he's too big. And our standing orders are that we send only short, skinny men without families into holes. He said, I have a family. I got a mother and father. I got sisters. No, Mottola. And according to the Army, you have no family. A family is a married man with children. Get in the hole. It doesn't seem fair. Mottola, the Army is not fair to Specialist 4th Classes for their convenience. And he said, then he goes, And he looks at me and he gave me that sly little grin I think you all are aware of. You're single too, aren't you, sir? I looked at him and I said, wrap your t-shirt around your 45 so you don't break my goddamn eardrums if you have to shoot the damn thing. Get in a hole and I'll be right behind you. From Psalm 23. Yea, though I walk through the valley of death, I fear no evil. For I am the meanest, baddest son of a bitch in the valley. That mantra seems silly, sophomoric, and maybe even a little blasphemous. But that mantra kept a lot of men alive. When you're 20 years old and aware that your next breath may be your last. Ralph believed in it, and more importantly, he made others around him believe it. His indomitable will was his largest leadership trait, and people are alive today because of that. On December 10th, 1967, assault vehicle Charlie 10 ran over a mine. A 250-pound Air Force bomb, and re-rigged by the VC as a landmine. They call these things nowadays explosive.
Improvised explosive.
I'm having a little bit of sand in my eyes. Explosive device, improvised explosive device. But then, they were just simply landmines, and that was it. A 22,000-pound Army cavalry assault vehicle was blown in the air 30 feet. And it shed 4 of its crew members out. The driver, PFC Michael Saunders, was killed immediately because the vehicle turned turtle, and he was holding onto the laterals so he wouldn't fall out, and the weight of the entire 11-ton vehicle broke his neck. Staff Sergeant Vernon suffered a severe concussion and recovered and retired after a 20-year military career. PFC Williamson also suffered a concussion and was sent home. PFC Robert Miller and Special Force Class Ralph Matola were the most serious injured of the surviving members. Miller lost the use of his legs, but he recovered, returned to school in Wayne State University in Detroit, where he was from, and went to school and returned to work for the engineering firm that he worked for as a foreman when he was drafted, but this time as a managing engineer. On his own, Robert Miller counseled and welcomed returning veterans with injuries like his. Ralph Matola suffered a severe brain injury, spinal injury, and an atrophied leg. And later in life, heart trouble. Don't believe for a moment that if getting blown up in the air 30 feet, and you develop heart problems some years later, that are not related. Ralph went on back to school and had an illustrious career at Motorola and met the love of his life and raised 2 families. There's such men as Ralph Patola and Bob Miller that I was privileged to have served with. In 2004, while visiting Jackie's relatives in Detroit, Michigan, I was able to contact Robert Miller. And I spent some time with Robert. And Robert told me that Ralph still is bitter and blames me for the carnage that happened on that day. And perhaps rightfully so, because as a commander, you are responsible for everything that your men do or they fail to do, what happens to them and what doesn't happen to them, and whether they live or die. And in the words of Harry Truman, the buck stops here. But this had to be taken care of. So I called Ralph. I told him, "Do you remember me?" I said, "I'll be traveling with my lady Jackie to Arizona in the Southwest on an RV trip. I'd like to come by and see you, if that's okay." He said, "Yes." So we went to traveling by a rented RV, Jackie and I, and our oldest pup, Shotzi. She was about a year old at the time. And met Karen and the new grandchild, and his son. We left Karen and Jackie to get acquainted, Shotzi to play with his beloved Freddie Bassett, and Shotzi to lick the infant son's feet. We went to a bar to have a beer. And to the casual observer, all you could see were 2 older men having a conversation. Sometimes sparked by smiles and gentle laughter, and other times frowns and grimaces of memories not so bad. And also stares at an unseen object at an unknown distance. There it is. There it is, as another expression from Vietnam, which is the culminative declaration of all things. There it is means there is no more recriminations. There is no more second guessing. There is no more woulda, coulda, shoulda. It is what it is. There it is also meant that I had no guilt to expiate. It also meant that Ralph had no bitterness to eat at his soul. There it is also meant that Ralph and I renewed a bond forged of blood, sweat, and fire that will not be unbroken until I too breathe my last. Today, I'm here to say, pay my final duty to my friend. In December, Ralph began the first of his 3-month stay in and out of the hospital here in Gilbert. We talked almost constantly every day. And when that happened, I knew something was wrong, but did not take my phone calls. Because that moment in 2004, we did things together. We did a lot of things. We were the ones who traveled across this country and visited everyone who was sick, dying in hospitals. We attended their final services, and we also saw their children get married. This was this bond, and that bond went to the others who served in our platoon. We didn't have a lot of, sometimes we didn't have conversations that ended up on a high note. You all know that Ralph's passions ran deep and hard. And oftentimes, I would say, finish your bowl of ice cream, go to the throne, take a nap, watching Fox News on your phone. Then he would say, well, you can perform an unusual and unnatural sexual act upon yourself. Okay then. And then minutes later, maybe the next day, he'd call and say, well, you know when I told you to go screw yourself, that it was strictly platonic. I know, I love you too, Ralph. And that's the way it went. There it is also meant there would be no world, my world, without Ralph Matola. In December, when we were not communicating as usual, I sent various messages, were unanswered. I finally called Karen, and she told me that Ralph was not taking any calls, and briefly gave me the rundown of his health situation. And in fact, a little bit after that, he called. He sounded pretty good. He told me, he said, I'm okay. I don't need you to come down and see me. Just stay, you're okay. You don't have to come down. I said, okay. And he did sound good. He wasn't gasping for breath when he was speaking. So I thought, maybe this is okay. And then in early March, Karen called me and told me that Ralph would like to see me. I said, so we'll be there. So on the 6th of March of this year, I was at his bedside. And we talked. And I questioned him. I said, we've done all these things together. We were there for everybody. What is going on now? Am I going to be the last man standing? It was a question that was unanswered. And we left. And we left, Jackie and I left to have lunch and then await Ralph, who was being released that afternoon later. And that night, when Karen returned home with Ralph. We went in into his bedroom. He was going to get changed into something more comfortable. And we talked. We spoke of things that only men like us can understand. Later, I went out to the front room to join the ladies with TV, watch TV, eat popcorn. And Ralph came out, my strong-willed man, who was a rock to a lot of you, I'm sure, using a walker I had never seen before in my life. And I asked him, what the hell is that thing? And he said, it's a custom-made one. I bought it because it's got these big wheels. You can go over all, easily walk around. I said, what are you going to do? Have a cross-country race in a Baja 1000? And he said, so, you have to excuse me, there's a speck of dust. And during that night, he would ask me several times when he was going to see me next. I would say, well, either the first part of May, when I go to Yuma to celebrate my birthday with Mike Jones, who was a former platoon leader under a different unit when I was his boss. Or in the third week in June, when I had to go to Scottsdale for the annual reunion of the 173rd Airborne Brigade. That's when I'll see you next. Next morning when we got up, and we're saying our goodbyes, Ralph was sitting in that wheelchair. And he asked me again when he was going to see me next. I did not answer him. I bent down, just in the top of his shiny bald head. I love you, Ralph. He said, I love you too. Today, I'm not saying goodbye. It's part of my final duty to my friend. Because he remains in my heart until again I breathe my last. And I will see him again. I will see him again. I will go to a place called Fiddler's Green. Fiddler's Green is a idyllic glade, tree-covered glade with a running brook running by it. And from the mist will come mounted warriors, old and new. We will have a talk and have a drink of the dew. We will talk of battles hard fought with acts of bravery, courage, honor, and daring do. And of loves lost and won. Fiddler's Green is not heaven for mounted warriors, for cavalrymen, but it can be. You can stay there as long as you want. But for me, it's a stop and it's a stop to my final destination, which is Rainbow Bridge. And I hope that Ralph and I will walk together. At Rainbow Bridge will be all the dogs that I ever possessed me and his beloved Fred. And they will sneak us into heaven 15 minutes before the devil knows we're there. Thank you.